everyone, and welcome to a new podcast. On today's episode, we are actually joined by Dr. Carol, our very good friend. The camera is over there if you want to wave. Give it a little bit of a wave. So Carol is a qualified aesthetic doctor and an aspiring dermatologist. On today's podcast, we are going to discuss how strength training is different for women. That's going to include better mental health, balanced hormones, fat loss, and skin. So let's welcome Dr. Carol.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Also,
Thank
I
you
should
so
have
much
said.
for inviting me.
Should I say that you are here too, Ashley?
Oh,
I didn't actually mention you, did I?
This is a YES2FITNESS podcast. I'm involved.
He is involved. Right. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into aesthetics and dermatology, Carol?
Well, I always thought, how people always say, oh, it's important what's on the inside, and yes, fair enough. But I feel that first impressions do matter, and I always felt that people really feel more confident and they feel better about themselves if they know that they look better.
Yeah, 100%.
And one of the things that is the most out of the organs, it would be the skin. It is the biggest organ of your body, and I feel that when people have a good skin and they know that they're looking good, they just feel better about themselves.
100%.
It gives them confidence in life, and it's quite important for success.
Yeah, 100%. I can agree with that. Obviously, every time I get my lips done or anything else, I just feel a million times better. I want to take selfies every day. it makes you feel a little bit better.
It does.
Actually, Ashley wants to get some Botox done himself.
Need some?
So we're going to see how
Got
that
you.
goes. We'll let you know when we're doing that. But yeah, that's really good. I do agree with that. What do you think about it, Ashley?
I think, as well, obviously this podcast is predominantly about sort of females, that's what we're aiming at this one, but for guys too, they can definitely feel more confident if they've got something that's an insecurity. Your skin is what you see every day.
Mm-hmm.
You see your face, it's on the mirror, especially in the bodybuilding community, we're constantly looking to improve ourselves. So if you're insecure about something, it's always going to put you down slightly. So, if you can resolve that, or you can have healthier skin or anything like that, it's always going to be.
Yeah, and another thing is, obviously, how a lot of people will kind of go against it and they say you're beautiful as you are, you don't need this, you don't need that. But I think as long as you're open about it, it's not a problem. As long as I don't go around saying, no, this is my skin, I've never done anything to it. When I have, I think as long as you're open about it, then it's a good thing.
Some people are just lucky to be born with perfect skin and perfect proportions, and you can just use aesthetic medicine to help the ones that haven't. Sometimes whenever people have skin conditions, for example acne or maybe rosacea, it's not their fault that the skin doesn't look the best. So why not have a little bit of help cosmetically to just make them feel better?
Yeah, actually, because you just said that, it just popped into my mind, but we're only going to do this for YouTube. Obviously, we can't actually post pictures on a podcast.
No.
But if you can send us some before and afters that we can show,
Yeah, we'll put them over the video.
We can put them over the video for everyone to kind of
Definitely.
see. I think that'd be a good thing. Cool, so first questions. First question.
Question number one.
Question number one. What are the general effects of exercise on endorphins production? So your happy hormone.
Yeah, well, it is really important. Exercise is definitely one of the biggest parts of health in general, I would say. What it does to your body is many different effects. As you were mentioning, definitely producing endorphins. Endorphins are what we call our happy hormones or our happy chemicals. They basically help to decrease the feeling of pain, for example, and help with the endurance. Exercise does have quite an important effect also on dopamine production. So basically when you do exercise, you kind of have this reward feeling towards yourself, and it makes you feel very energetic. And as you said, it is a happy hormone.
Yeah, which is why most people, exactly like I said, most people will feel good after a workout. It makes you feel happy.
I was going to say, it's definitely something that people can now relate to. Have you ever not wanted to do a workout, gone and done one, and then actually felt just physically and mentally better after it?
Much
and
better.
That was
there's
actually
your answer.
One of the replies yesterday on one of our online coaching clients said that she's struggling to get to the gym, but she always feels good once she's standing, basically. So that's a little example. When you feel tired in the evening, you make it to the gym, your endorphins kick in, and then you feel good about it. So yeah, that's a big thing. So why is strength training different for women compared to men?
So when we talk about strength training, I think that like everybody, both men and women, should actually go into strength training. I feel that like women in general, at least like from my perspective, you guys can tell me a little bit more, but I feel like women always tend to go for what is aerobic exercise. So they tend to go for their Zumba classes and maybe like running, and they are a little bit afraid of maybe do any strength training because they feel like, oh, they might just look like a man, basically, which is very likely not going to happen. If not, when you have aerobic exercise, I'm not shaming on aerobic exercise. It's actually quite important to have some aerobic exercise. It does help with your cardiac activity, so it's really good for the heart, really good for the lungs. So if somebody, for example, knows that they have got a little bit of high blood pressure, or maybe they have history of high blood pressure in their family from their parents, or high cholesterol in their family, that definitely is good that they do some aerobic exercise. But strength training should not be underestimated either. Basically what happens during strength training is that we are training our muscles and they start working. That's like the base of it. So when a muscle starts working, it's burning more calories. But what many people don't know is that actually on the muscles there is a receptor that is called the GLUT receptor. It's a receptor for glucose. You know, it's basically the sugars. Everything that we eat is then converted into glucose, and that's what gives us energy. So these receptors, they're found on the fat cells, they're found on the muscle cells, and they're found in the liver. So whenever we, as I said, we eat food, it's converted into glucose, and then it goes into one of these areas where we basically absorb it. If people do strength training, the glucose receptor on the muscle actually gets hyperstimulated, and more receptor on the muscle start to appear. So the most glucose that you intake is actually going to go into the muscle and is going to be burned during exercise compared to, for example, aerobic training. So if we think of that, it basically means that when you do strength training, you burn much more of your energy, much more of your food through muscle, which is energy that instead would go and be stored in your fat cells instead, if you weren't using your muscle, or into your liver. And then in the liver, again, it would be converted into cholesterol and it would go into the fat cells. So that for me is quite a good evidence to actually say that strength training would help with weight loss much more than aerobic exercise would.
100%, yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest things I think that people don't realize is like the go-to when try to lose weight would be cardio. People never see strength training as the first option, do they? From past experience. Something I wanted to touch on that I think you mentioned earlier. You said about women looking manly, right? So can you go a little bit into like detail about that, like the different types of hormones between men and women, and why women don't look manly?
Yes, so the difference between men and women hormonally, we all produce an hormone that is called androgen, which is basically our sex hormone, and then this androgen is converted to different percentages between men and women into testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So women as well, they do produce some testosterone, but that would be the main male sex hormone. So or men's would produce much more testosterone than women would. So it's just a matter of how many percentages of the androgen base hormone is then converted into other into the final hormones, which is the ones that then give you your sex characteristics. It's usually something that is defined already when you are a fetus, before you were born. You have your genetic pool, and whether you are a man or a woman, that's where you start producing your hormones. And then this enzyme, this is called aromatase, which is the enzyme that is basically converting your androgens into the final hormones, has got an hyperexpression at the time of puberty. So this is how you then develop your secondary sexual characteristics, and it's going to be what you carry on for life. So going back to your question, definitely we can tell that women have much higher levels of estrogen and progesterone compared.
We're back. Sorry, the camera stopped recording.
Okay. So going back to your question, the importance and this difference in testosterone and estrogen is also going to be quite important into the fact deposition into the places where we accumulate our fat, and it's going to be the main difference between men and women. I think most people are familiar with what is an androgynous body type of fat deposition and gynecoid body fat deposition. So men, they tend to accumulate most of their body fat on their tummy. They tend to have much skinnier legs. It's mostly on the tummy and the center of the body where they start accumulating the body fat. Whereas for females, we can, of course, just by looking at every woman will tell you more or less that her problems is mostly around the hips. That's where they tend to accumulate, mostly on the hips, on the thighs. So that would be a gynoid body type.
I wish I would.
So whenever we are targeting exercise and strength training, really, it's much harder for females to look masculine because they will still keep on accumulating their body fat in those areas. So unless they completely lose all of their body fat and be left simply with their muscles, they will still maintain their normal characteristics. I would say that like 90%, if not all of the women that actually get into fitness, so like an average person that does fitness, they don't run the risk of looking masculine for a little bit of strength training. Actually, something they should.
And in terms of the testosterone, obviously that's the main hormone that helps to build muscle. The higher the testosterone in a guy, they've got more chance of building muscle quicker. So the fact that females are a considerable amount lower,
much lower,
means that even in that respect, if they train the same as a male, it would take a lot longer to build the same muscle.
Yeah,
definitely.
Or the same amount of muscle as a male. So
100%.
you're not going to build it as a female quickly.
Let's be honest, I've been training for how many years now? Like 6-7 years.
That's the comment I make to people in the gym,
I'm still not where I want to be. So yeah, it takes a long time to get that manly look, let's say, or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really important question to touch on, because it's where most females avoid strength training because they think they're going to look manly, but you're just not going to. Right, so the next question, actually Ashley's going to be able to kind of jump in a little bit more on this, because obviously I've never prepped someone or I've never competed myself yet. But he has, so obviously I'll leave this question to you two mostly. So in terms of a prep show, so losing a lot of body fat, going to a really low body fat percentage, how do your hormones get affected by this? So when you drop a lot of fat very quickly, how does your body react to that in terms of the hormones?
So of course now we're talking very specifically of the bodybuilding world, let's say, like it wouldn't really apply to the average person. It is really hard on the body to lose that much body weight at once. For the body, they don't really, like, your body doesn't quite understand what's happening, and it's sort of a loss of the hemostasis that your body has in that moment. So usually the most hormones that would be affected, in this case it would be around the insulin and glucagon, which are basically the two hormones responsible for maintaining your blood sugars. Because I feel that definitely there are quite strong adjustments when you get into bodybuilding diet-wise, and your body won't produce as much insulin because you don't have that much of glucose going through your blood. So that would be the first response of insulin. It would be instead a raise in glucagon, because it will try and maintain your sugar levels to what's the ideal concentration. So that would be between 3 and 5 millimoles into your blood. So that would be, I would guess, the main adjustment hormone wise when you are trying to prep and lose weight that fast, really.
Cool. Would you agree? From your
I know the feelings you get. Yeah, that's something how you sort of feel when you start prepping. Like you say, you do a lot of hormone changes happen, very quickly. Like you say, like sex hormones, everything sort of changes, and you certainly feel very different. It's true. I think if you speak to everyone, it's say the loss of sex drive drops, and to do with strength drops. Like you say, testosterone levels will drop off slightly. So there's a hell of a lot of changes that happen. It's an extreme, like you say. This isn't for every this isn't for every person that's trying to lose weight. This is
No.
for people that are pushing the body to extremes, which is bodybuilding. You know,
Yeah.
it's not healthy. So
It's definitely quite interesting that you mentioned like the loss of sex drive and the loss of strength, which is due from the testosterone. And the reason for that is because the testosterone, the substrate for testosterone is actually cholesterol. Cholesterol is a fat. So when you bring your body fat to a minimum, you actually don't have enough scratch material, which is your cholesterol, to actually for your body to produce enough testosterone. So chemically it completely makes sense that you basically have these symptoms, which is for you being testosterone deprived or cholesterol deprived.
Cool. So how can you maintain a healthy hormone balance during prep?
It is a very difficult question.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult
Or maybe
question.
maybe not fully healthy hormone balance, but
yeah,
what
let's
can
put
you do?
this on females.
Yeah.
Then obviously you haven't prepped yet, but
Yeah,
let's
okay.
exclude males. Males can sort of very easily, not easily, but supplement
Yeah. Any deficiencies, I guess.
deficiencies. You know, in the bodybuilding world, performance enhancing drugs are used, testosterone's used. You know, to build it up by injecting it. But for females, obviously, they wouldn't do that. So how can
Yeah.
we put the spin on
On
helping
ladies.
with hormones for females?
Well, for females, it would possibly be a little bit more challenging because they would notice the amenorrhea, which is basically the loss of the menstruation. They probably
Yeah,
don't
that's
get
a
the
big one.
menstruation, and again, they don't because there isn't enough substrate, there isn't enough cholesterol for them to actually produce hormones. It is hard. It's not particularly healthy. I am not going to lie. It would be best if that wasn't to happen, but I do understand that, of course,
Reasons.
in the bodybuilding life, it's quite a common issue. I would say that definitely, and I would recommend to every woman that is into this type of bodybuilding world to be always in contact with their OB/GYN and possibly like consider some, for example, contraceptive pill, because the contraceptive pill, though is known as a contraception, which is what it does, it is still hormones that is basically inserting into your body, so it does act more or less a bit of a supplementation, sort of say, but that would be again dependent from person to person. I think that is quite important when somebody is competing and is competing many times, that they discuss with their doctor possibly their future plans for fertility. Are they planning on having a family? Are they planning on having babies? Is that a priority for them? And going from there with the discussion with their doctor, then they can more or less understand how to find a balance between that there is their bodybuilding life and that there is possibly like, you know, their normal life of having a family and having children. So I think that would be something to discuss with their doctor.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely, because you have to accept, I guess, in a way, what comes with it. So when you decide to compete, it's not just the competing, you need to like take everything that comes with it. So yeah, 100% I agree with that. I think it's a good way of looking at it, because it's not a permanent change, is it? It's just for a
No, you
period
find
of
that what
time.
sort of 3 or 4
Yeah.
months after
It goes back
it
to
will
her,
come
which is
back, the
actually
cycle
the
will
next
come back,
question that we're gonna go into. But yeah, it's just a temporary change. So I guess it's looking at it and trying to make it as, you know, make it have as little of an effect on your body, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Finding ways around it to make it work. You've already touched on that. It was actually the next question was about menstrual cycle, but we've already talked about that. So now, once the prep is done, right, we're gonna go to the other extreme, gaining weight. So once you've lost all of that weight, as you can tell from your past experience, actually, so
chubby cheeks. Actually tells me.
look at the chubby cheeks. So you lose a lot of weight, you get on stage, you look amazing, boom boom pow, and then you get off the stage and you start eating a lot. Now, obviously, it's always recommended that you do a healthy reverse diet, which is what you've done, I think. I would say
It's always
so.
a recommendation, like you say, you reverse dieting, as in when you come off a stage, you have a day or two to relax, and then you will reverse your calories back up. So you will, even after shows, stay relatively low.
Yeah.
A few hundred calories higher than what you were in the diet phase, but then it will soon shoot up over time, not initially, and which is probably the easiest way to reverse out the show, and probably safest.
Yeah, but most people would just kind of let it go. Let's be real
Go
here.
full on.
A lot of people will just come
McDonald's
off
for
stage.
breakfast.
and just really go full on with the food. So now in terms of gaining a lot of weight very quickly, we're talking 5 to 10 kilos in a week. How would that affect female hormones? So going from one extreme to another.
Right. So actually I want to add on that by saying what is the reason that actually people feel like they want to eat everything that is in front of them. It is actually given to an hormone that is called leptin. It's an hormone that not many people have heard about, but is the hormone that is basically regulating how full and how hungry you feel. It's an hormone that is mostly secreted by your adipose tissue, which is basically most of your fat is stored. And leptin is basically overexpressed when you feel hungry. So when your body feels depleted of energy, from the fat cells, it starts signaling out these hormones, which then in turn is going to, for example, increase the gastric secretions and give lots and lots of signals to your brain that you need to eat. So that's basically the mechanism for it. Leptin is a hormone that is actually currently very studied, for example, in obesity, because it works through a feedback mechanism. So it means that when you're finally full and you reach like a level where your body says, okay, I have enough calories, by a feedback mechanism you stop producing gastric acids and the leptin levels drops. But it's actually been found that in people that have pathologic obesity, this mechanism doesn't work. So basically they cannot stop eating. Because they don't have any feedback mechanism. They just keep on producing leptin, and therefore they keep on eating. So what happens with a bodybuilder before and after a competition is that because they bring their body fat to a minimum, they bring their calorie intake to a minimum, this leptin starts producing. So it's signaling to your brain like, no, I need to eat something, I need to have calories. So because of that, when you finally feel mentally that you're off the stage and you're done with your prepping, you're done with your performance, your leptin levels are probably through the roof. So it's really, really hard to then control, because it's quite a primary instinct that you do need to eat for survival, and so that's why people tend to eat loads. As you said, the only thing that you can more or less do is try and have a reverse dieting. So try and reintroduce the calories in your body quite slowly and steady. Good calories, so definitely like not very high fatty foods, because in that moment your body is so starved and so calorie deprived that it's basically just going to absorb everything that you put into it.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so.
Like you said, and the leptin, the fact that you say like it's a receptor. Like, if you find when you prep, you struggle to sleep. I guess because your body's hungry. Like it's your body is actually having, even though you're sleeping, it's still saying that you need food. So it tries to wake you up to say you need to eat. So that's why when you get to the latter end of the stages of prep, sleep soon becomes a problem.
Yeah. It's quite important, it's quite interesting actually that you mention even during sleep, because I think that most people, they think, oh, I'm just sleeping, I actually don't need that many calories, which instead you do, because to maintain your all body functions, you have got something that is called a basal metabolic rate. So that is the minimum amount of calories that you need to stay alive. So if I'm just sitting here doing absolutely nothing, or I'm even sleeping, I still need a minimum amount of calories to keep my blood pumping, to keep my brain active, to keep my respiration active. So that minimum of calories your bodies will always need, even if you're just there resting. And that's basically why you keep on feeling hungry, even when you try to rest.
Yeah, cool. So the main tips we're looking at when gaining weight fast, it would be, as we've already mentioned, is reverse dieting. And this is not only like show or bodybuilding related, is for anyone.
No, this is for anyone that's dieting in general.
Anyone who's finished the diet phase and they're looking at either maintaining or just gaining a little bit of weight back. First thing would definitely be reverse diet. Don't go full on, because that's just your hormones basically gonna go through the roof and then probably drop again, which is gonna make you feel like shit.
Basically.
Any other main tips you have around that?
Well, no, I would say that definitely, as you said, like this would be for everybody that is going through a weight loss process, not necessarily as strong as the bodybuilding, but also like our average women, maybe she's had a baby, or maybe she just wants to feel a little bit better and go through a dieting process. Definitely exercise. You can continue to exercise, maybe not as strongly as when you are prepping for the bodybuilding, but it's quite important that you maintain your exercise level, that you maintain a healthy diet, and that you reintroduce all the good foods. So still plenty of veggies, plenty of fruits, and low calorie and low fats.
Actually that's a really good point.
Low sugars.
Still lots of veggies, and because people see that like veggies fruit as a weight loss thing, but you never see someone who's trying to gain weight having a plate full of veggies too. It's just, which I guess it comes down to volume. You eat a lot in a
Volume,
day.
yeah. But you struggle when you're on such high calories and you're eating clean. There's a lot of volume in the food, so to add volume from veg, because it's so low calorie, there's a big volume of it. You just don't want to eat it because it's just
too much.
Yeah, it's just too much.
But you do have to consider that when you are losing all of this weight, you're not only losing fat, you're also losing protein, you're also losing minerals, you're also losing vitamins.
100%.
So it's quite important to reintroduce all of it. Your body, it will go straight for calories because, as I said, is the basic metabolic rate. It's like your basic instinct of having enough calorie, even just to maintain your body warmth. But it's quite important to replenish everything that comes with it, from the minerals to the vitamins to the proteins.
100%, yeah. Right, so moving on to a slightly different topic, we're going to be talking about cortisol. So first of all, what is it and how can you lower it?
So cortisol is one of the essential hormones, I would say, into the body. It's what we know as the stress hormone or the fight or flight response hormone.
Yeah, fight or flight is something that not everyone will know, but like say can relate to, like fight or flight.
Yeah, so I think it's like, even as a common expression, I think I've been hearing it a lot. People say, oh, it's just your fight or flight response. When you mention that, you're basically talking of your cortisol. It is an hormone that is produced from your suprarenal glands, so a little gland that is just positioned above your kidney. In the inner part of this gland, that's where the cortisol gets produced. It is a cortisol that is really important to maintain your body functions, especially when we are talking about blood pressure. Really, really important for blood pressure, really important for a sense of awareness that you do have. Cortisols tend to fluctuate. It's been shown that there is, by studies, we measure the most cortisol at 8 a.m. in the morning and at 6 p.m. in the evening. And that is something that you can tell it correlates more or less with your circadian rhythm, because it goes with the time that you should be theoretically be waking up, and with the time that it's time to wind down and just relax and then go to sleep. So for example, even in hospital, when people have, for example, some suprarenal problems, we always tend to measure the cortisols at 8 in the morning and 6 p.m. This is proven by science. This is your normal cycle. And then it does have another peak when you are particularly stressed. It just does it because of the actions from the cortisol that you have, as I said, is maintaining the blood pressure. So if you have a peak in cortisol because you are potentially scared or stressed, you have a raise in blood pressure. That in turn also raises your heart rate. So you might have speeding heart rate, perspiration, so you might feel particularly sweaty. It's just something that you can imagine. Like, let's say for example you're afraid of dogs and you're walking down the street and you find a dog in front of you. Which are the reactions that you're going to have? You're going to panic, you're going to have a little bit of a brain fog, you're going to feel your heart rate going through the roof, you're going to start sweating. These are all the actions that a cortisol would produce. Basically, it's quite normal, and it's really, really important, because if you weren't to have that peak of cortisol, you probably wouldn't have the strength to probably maybe react and run away from the dog or run away from whatever danger is around you. So it's one of actually like the basic hormones for human life.
Cool. So how can we lower it? So for someone who's very stressed, or even related to things like weight loss and that, like your body is under stress at that point, how can you lower your cortisol level?
You basically need to lower your stresses. There is a lot of misinformation around. We'll just say, oh, you can take some sort of herbal supplements to lower your cortisol. It is really hard to say, oh yeah, actually your cortisol is lowered. You should probably practice mindfulness. That's something that has been proven to actually lower your cortisol levels. We do something that is called the vasovagal maneuver. So that means, for example, having a little bit of ice cube into your mouth, or breathing really, really slowly, cold water onto the wrists. Anything that would lower your heart rate is in turn going to lower your cortisol, because again, by a feedback mechanism, if you don't have a high heart rate, your body doesn't feel stressed, and therefore is like, okay, there's no threat, I am lowering my cortisol.
So would you say things like meditation,
Absolutely.
which we obviously highly recommend for everyone to do, don't we? I know people feel a bit, there's people who agree with it, people who just think they're wasting their time. You're really not. It makes you happier overall. Things like exercise, would you say that it's something that will lower your cortisol level overall?
It would lower definitely your cortisol levels, because when you do exercise, you are basically channeling your energy towards something else, and you're using up that energy. So if you have a high level of cortisol, it's actually quite good to exercise in that one moment, because that is using up your stresses. Like, your body is very clever, but it's not clever enough to understand what is a stressful factor and what isn't. And in that moment, you are channeling your stress through exercising and lowering your cortisol levels.
Amazing.
Touching back onto cortisol then, we've talked about what it is and why, and how to lower it, but why would you want to lower it?
Good point.
Is probably something we should touch on. So obviously, cortisol and high cortisols tend to believe that helps hold weight, so you struggle in a weight loss phase if you've got high cortisol, as well as a limiting factor to muscle building. So hitting both nails on the head, it's bad for building muscle and losing weight. So if you can help to lower it, obviously, even if you're trying to build muscle, you still want to keep your fat low, but you want to build the muscle. Or if you're trying to lose weight, adding muscle and losing fat,
but I think
the lower it can be, the better.
Exactly. And I also think it relates to everything in life. It's not, he's losing weight, gaining muscle, but I think he's just generally being happier in life. Things like, your work, like most of the time that makes you feel stressed. If you can lower your cortisol and then you turn work into a positive thing, you'll just be happier in life generally. So
there's actually a very interesting paper that I was reading about weight loss and cortisol, and I know that people also in the bodybuilding world, they would say, oh, you need to lower your cortisol to lose weight. It's something that I have been hearing about, and the paper was actually really interesting, because it was explaining how the cortisol levels will basically, like, your body is feeling stressed, so your cortisol levels are really high, and your brain is automatically signaling, okay, we are going to need more calories because we are going through a stressful situation, so we need to fight it. And in turn, you start eating more and you start feeling more hungry, because again, because of the leptin, your body is tricked into thinking that that stressful factor is going to require more calories. And so it's sort of like a chain mechanism through which you're producing cortisol, you're feeling stressed, that's the first one, you're producing cortisol, your body is thinking, okay, we need loads more calories, so you start producing leptin, and then you start eating more because you're feeling more hungry. So it's quite important to lower it in that sense, and generally, not only if somebody is prepping for muscles, but like generally for weight loss, it's quite important to maintain a healthy level.
So lowering it as an appetite suppressant, like you say, so that's good.
And definitely that's something very common that you see, especially in today's world, don't you? Like, people will get
Stress
stressed
eating.
and you start snacking, like,
stress eating,
instantly, so 100%.
Yeah, it was absolutely interesting that the mechanism was that.
Yeah. Okay, so just to wrap up this podcast, last question we have, which is a little bit of a silly point here, but we're just gonna keep it real. But in terms of losing a lot of weight, gaining a lot of fat, everything we talked about, even stress, like that obviously affects your skin, right?
Definitely.
So why is it important, or not necessarily important, but why is it good for us to look after our skin, to get things like, preventive Botox is one of the things that a lot of people do, especially when losing weight. Even lip fillers, like we said before, it makes you feel good about yourself, but why is it good for us to look at those alternatives? What do you recommend them to people?
Well, I would say it's quite important to look at how we lose fat. So some people, it depends again on the person, it depends what kind of fat distribution you do have. But most people, and ladies in particular, bodybuilders as well, and you probably can confirm, you know, it's funny that initially...
This is why you go wrinkles, basically.
I was actually when I touched on the moment when he said, oh, my chubby cheeks.
Yeah.
We have fat pads into the face, and they are actually good fat. It's the fat that is going to make us look young.
Yeah.
We have a big fat pad, it's a triangular shaped fat pad just into the cheek, and it's called the malar fat pad. It is really, really big when we're little, and you know, you have just chubby babies that you just want to...
I've got them again now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a malar fat pad, and most people, when they lose weight, they tend to lose weight from the malar fat pad, and that is normal with aging. If you look at elderly people, it's common to see that their faces have gone a little bit fat, deflated, and that happens with weight loss as well. And for somebody that goes through a process of weight loss, especially when it's such a big weight loss, such as, for example, you know, extreme weight losses or bodybuilding, you will lose fat into the face. And I'm pretty sure that most people, when they look at themselves in the mirror, they do notice that they have this little bit of deflection into the cheeks. And it's fat that is going to be hard to get back. It's really, really easy to lose, but it's harder for you to get more fat back into your face, because if you start eating again, it's probably going to go to the problem areas, tummy if you're a man, or you know, on the hips if you are a female. And that's something where fillers can definitely help, because they will restore the volume loss that you have in your fat pads. Again, it can be, depending on where you lose it, definitely in the cheeks. I would say that is one of the areas that I tend to treat the most in people after weight loss. And then definitely as well in the lips and around the lip area, as you were mentioning before. Exercise in general is actually really good for the skin, because it does bring blood supply to the skin, and it's quite important to keep it healthy, because the skin is very vascular, but the top layer of your skin is actually dead tissue. It's the one that you exfoliate. So it helps bringing oxygenation to the area. And with weight loss, unfortunately, because we lower our estrogen levels, we don't have that much moisture to the skin. So that's something else that probably people that are going through a strong weight loss will probably have felt, is the fact that their skin is feeling really dry. So something like, for example, skin boosters or maybe medical grade creams that could really help there. With their body, especially because I feel that, like as we mentioned in the beginning, we don't want to be superficial, but people do care about the way you look.
100%.
If you are putting yourself through the stress of going to the gym or going to weight loss, or even especially possibly if you are a bodybuilder, I guess it's a big part of competitions, isn't it? Also the way you look.
Yeah, aesthetically, you are judged aesthetically as well in some categories, as well as just the muscles you produce. You know, it's the overall look. So yeah. People have their teeth done for shows, things like that, everything. You know.
Exactly, so I don't see why aesthetic medicine should be seen as a bad thing or something that people should stay away from. I feel that people in general, they're really scared of aesthetic medicine or fillers because they have seen so many botched jobs going around, and when it's a well done job, I think that people don't really notice, and especially when you do have fat depletion there, it's always better to put it back in. Even if it's just a filler, it's going to definitely make you look fresher 100%. And not much older than you are.
I think people are put off as well by price. I always thought if you don't know about the costings, it's actually cheaper than what you would have thought it was. You know, when you see the things on TV, you know, thousands of pounds being spent, and it doesn't have to be. So you know, I think people are put off by it. They think it's more expensive than what it actually is.
Definitely.
And also, obviously, touching on what you said earlier, it's about the person you choose to get it done. I can personally say I had bad experiences in the past. I'm not going to go into that, but you know, it does pay you off 100%. So obviously, Carol is a qualified doctor. She's not just, you know, she didn't just do a little course for a day and then start putting fillers in people's faces. She's actually qualified to do it. So that is definitely a big thing. So, you know, doing your research on who does it, and 100% if you're in the area, go to Carol. So do you want to tell everyone where you're located?
Yes, so I have a clinic in Stevenage, just off the High Street. If you want to, you can go and visit my website. There's a direct link to where my clinic is. I am running weekly clinics currently on Sundays. You're more than welcome to come in for a free consultation. I do offer consultations for free because I think that there's so much misinformation around Botox and fillers that is quite important for people to just come in, have a chat, and then, you know, if there's something that I can do for you, happy to do it.
Yeah, because if we go back to my first consultation, was it a year ago?
Yeah, it's true. That's when we met, actually. We met at a consultation.
My life changed that day. No, but like I went there, you know, feeling not scared, but actually scared.
I remember you were quite scared because you
Yeah.
were coming from a bad experience with your lip filler. I remember that.
And I wasn't sure about it, so obviously this is why I think, you know, the free consultation or even just the chat on the phone is such an important thing, because it can put your mind at ease and then you can make a decision. And also Carol is amazing at helping you choose the right products for you. Like, for example, when I get my lip fillers done, there's so many different products you can use.
True.
So Carol was amazing at taking me through every single product and explaining how each of them works and which one would be best for me and all of that.
Thank you.
Also, Carol's going to be offer 10% off all treatments to anyone listening on the podcast or watching the YouTube video over there. We will leave obviously all of her details in the description box. We'll leave a link where you can book your consultation. Obviously, if you've never been to her before, you will have to do a consultation first. And then we're going to leave you a discount code, which is going to be...
YES2FITNESS.
YES2FITNESS.
So, of course, whenever you book in your consultation, if then you decide to go ahead with treatment, just let me know that you had a listen to the podcast and
you'll get a discount there. But yeah, highly recommend Carol over here. She's
Thank you.
absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining us today on this
thank
podcast.
you so much for
Thank you
having
very
me.
much.
I had so much fun.
Such good information, and it was great to speak to you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Bye,
listening.
everybody. Thank you for listening.
Bye, YouTube.